Hello everybody. In this video, I'm going to talk about how you can better prepare for public sector or government job interviews. And I'll talk about from my own experience and from the experience of others around me. So I have appeared for 4 interviews, out of which I converted 3, and in one I got a waitlist. So LICAA was my first public sector interview, then GIC and PFRDA, and I had also appeared for New India Assurance Company Limited AO interview. And other friends around me have also appeared for RBI Grade B, SSC CGL, SBI PO, IBPS PO, and other insurance companies interview processes. So this video will have 3 parts to it. One is why it is important to prepare for interviews, specifically prepare for interviews. Second would be the components of interview prep. And third would be some extra tips from my side. So we'll start with the first question, why it is important to appear for interviews. Now, earlier, the case used to be that interview marks or scores did not have a lot of variance or standard deviation, if you want to call it. So people used to maximize the score in the examination process, and interviews, since the deviation was not that much, interviews wouldn't really matter. But the past 1 or 2 years, especially with RBI, it has been, I think only with RBI, it has been observed that some people received very poor marks in the interview, like in single digit scores. And that has, broken the deal for them. And maybe if public sector companies and other government organizations keep following this trend, then specifically preparing for the interview becomes very important. And again, if this is the amount of variation that can happen in interview scores, then this is one part of the overall selection process that is in your hand, and you can again maximize the interview score to increase your chances of final selection. All right. So coming to the next part, the components of interview preparation. I've divided this into 2 main categories. One is related to the content or the knowledge that you bring or that you are tested on. And second is the communication part of it, which many people ignore. And it is slightly tricky to prepare as well. So I'll first start with the communication bit of it. Now, we all know that communication is broadly of 2 types: verbal communication and non-verbal communication. All right. So I'll start with verbal communication. When you speak, or rather, I will start with non-verbal communication first. All right. Now, non-verbal communication starts the moment you enter into the interview room. Okay. So your body language, your posture, your facial expressions, your demeanor, everything is being judged, right? Because they have all of their attention on you. So when you walk in the door, uh, be respectful, have a pleasant demeanor, wish everybody good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever the case may be. Ask for permission to sit. Okay. Then when they offer you the seat, then you sit. Okay. And you should have a firm, like you should have a confident posture. You should not slack off in the chair, that okay, I'm very comfortable. You should sit in a proper posture. All right. During answering, your facial expressions should not be very tensed. Okay. You should have the focus on the interviewer, on the questions. You should listen properly, but you should also keep on smiling. Okay. And for example, if a tricky question is asked, there's no harm in smiling and accepting that it is a tricky one for you, right? That kind of diffuses the tension as well, and you become more I don't know what to say, but maybe friendlier, or a person who's not defaced when asked tricky questions or when put in stressful situations. Okay. So diffuse that. Then you should also look at the interviewer's eyes when you are answering a question to the particular interviewer, And if you're explaining some bit, then you should also look at the other interviewers, because they are also observing you. And if you are explaining something, that then you're explaining it not just to one interviewer who asked the question, but to others as well. So you also look at other people and gauge their expressions as well. Okay, so this is more or less about the non-verbal communication. And yeah, once the interview is done, you obviously say thank you. Everybody says thank you, but you again wish that thank you so much for your time and wish you a good day or whatever. And then when you are exiting, you ensure that the chair is again put back in the proper position, so that the next candidate in line is ready to go. All right, and then you leave. All right, so this was non-verbal communication. Coming to the verbal communication, there is a common saying that you should not take pauses, you should not use filler words and all. I agree with the filler words comment, that you should not use filler words like it's like, and so try to avoid that. And the easiest way to avoid that is by taking pauses. So it might sound counterintuitive, but it takes a next level of preparation and skill to both avoid pauses as well as avoid the filler words. So avoiding filler words is easier. The way you do it is by taking pauses. So you don't have to be nervous. I mean, you would be nervous, but you can calm down your nerves. And if you are confident, you can ask for time. If a question is thrown at you and you are not sure, we have this tendency to immediately start replying without even thinking, because we somehow feel that it they would feel that I'm a stupid guy because I'm not answering. Okay, so you can respectfully ask for time can I have a minute to think about it and frame my response. They will be more than happy to give you that. All right, so take pauses, frame your response. Okay, think and then answer. I'm very sorry for the outside noise, but I am making this video late night. Right, so that's the watchman. Very sorry for that. All right, so when you are answering, try to be very clear and try to be concise. Many people have this tendency of going on and on and on and missing the point completely. So avoid that trap. Be clear what you want to communicate and be concise, and then pause, so that if they have any counter questions, they may ask you. All right, and while giving answers, try to find out the root causes and elaborate and answer those root causes, because that is the crux. All right, and only in questions where it is needed. Right, and it is completely okay to say sorry, I don't know about this, or sorry, it's not coming to my mind right now. But it's a good practice to follow it up by saying that I will right after the interview, I will search about it and I'll learn this thing. All right, just for my sake, my own knowledge. So that sums up our verbal communication part. So communication is over. Now coming to the other important component of interview prep, the content and the knowledge. All right, so I'll break this down into basically 4 parts. One would be questions related to current affairs or general knowledge. So these would be either general events happening and not related to your job or not related to the organization. So for example, you're interviewing for SBI and they ask you about some World Health Conference and what are your views on health and all. So it's a completely unrelated topic, but that's going on in current affairs. All right, so you should keep your current affairs and GK brushed up, so that you at least are aware of what's happening and you can talk something about it. Right, second kind of current affairs questions could be related to the industry or the organization that you are interviewing for. So that is a given, that if you're appearing for SBI PO, you should know about banking sector में क्या हो रहा है और SBI में क्या हो रहा है. No, you should know this. Second second type of questions could be on the subject. So again, subject could be, so if you are a fresher, you don't have any work experience, the subject matter then becomes your undergraduation or post graduation degree. that if you are an engineer, or if you were a commerce student, so you should brush up your fundamentals of engineering or commerce, or whatever the case may be, because they like to ask such questions. So be thorough with your basics in that. If you have work experience, then you should also prepare for the job, that you did before. What was it all about? What was the industry? What was your role? What was the organization doing? Okay, stuff about that. And thirdly, subject related questions could be like, maybe an SBI PO interview, some person goes into banking, कि अच्छा बैंक का बैलेंस शीट का बताओ, NPA का क्या होता है, technical questioning on that could also happen. Okay. So prepare for that as well. Third category in the content knowledge part is uh, others, basically behavioral questioning. Now, public sector and government sector interviewers are not very keen on behavioral questioning, so they won't ask you what are your 5-year goal or 10-year goal, or they might not ask you about the hardest work experience you were in, or the most difficult manager and all. So they won't get into that level of behavioral questioning, but they could ask you about your hobbies in general, and maybe questions about why do you want to join this organization, why do you want to join banking. Okay. Are you appearing for other examinations? So if you say, I'm appearing for civil services, so then they might say ki, oh, then though you'll leave this organization and all and go join civil services. So firstly, be prepared for this kind of questioning. Be very clear and be very honest and upfront about it. They also know. Okay. So that is the line of questioning you should also prepare for. All right. Then that was more or less about it. That's from my experience and the stories from my friends that I've heard. Finally, I would also like to give some extra tips. One is that it is a good habit if you ask questions. There is no harm in asking questions or counter questions. So if the interviewers have asked you something you have no idea, right, and you have some idea but you're not sure, so it's completely okay to ask them clarifying questions, that okay, I understood this, is this correct, or can you explain more about this, so that I can think and answer you appropriately. It's completely okay. Finally, if they at the end, if they ask that if you have any questions for us, then it's a good practice that you should ask them something. So be prepared for that as well. What is it that you would like to know more about the organization, or the industry, or their work experience, or the role, or anything that you would like to know. Okay. It would signal that you are an active person, and you are interested in the role or in the organization. All right. And yeah, that was my last extra tip. So that sums up the video, and wish you guys all the best for your upcoming interviews at public sector and government organizations. Thank you.